Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Successful Podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Zwiegle, and I get this question a lot. Like, why did you name your podcast Spiritual Successful? Well, because why choose one when you can be both? It's not about the extremes. It's honestly about the balance of being in between at all times. It's being happy with the now. It's being successful and spiritual, and you can have it all. You don't have to choose one side or the other. You don't have to sell your possessions to go live like a monk on top of the mountain. That's not the definition of spirituality, and you also don't have to be trading your soul for success either. There's definitely different ways of being successful than selling out. So anyways, I want to get on with this lesson today, or this podcast. Today I'm going to talk about resistance and flow. I feel like this is so important because when everything feels like uphill in life and you're just like 2 steps ahead and 4 steps back and everything just feels hard and sluggish and out of flow, basically, it means you're encountering resistance. And resistance is nothing more than something that's blocking the flow. And sometimes people go to therapy to figure out what their blockages are, or why they keep recycling the same experience over and over again, or why their, ways of thinking just can't seem to change. Well, today I want to talk about really just how to get rid of the resistance in our life and how to be more in the flow, because I feel like that is really, really key, especially if you want to become successful or, financially, or even just successful in your life, whatever your goals may be that are somehow feeling like they're hard to reach now. So basically, so resistance is when everything feels uphill. It's when we get really attached to how things should be. It's when we get attached to, like, we're just control freaks about things. Honestly, like, why? Like, I should be successful by now. Why is it not happening? It's not about the how. It's really not about how you get there. It's more so about just deciding you're gonna be there and being at peace with where you are now. I think that's so huge, is to really learn how to be at peace with where you are right now. Like, after I filed for bankruptcy several years ago, I lost everything except for my car. And I just remember feeling like, okay, I have nothing. I have no more attachments except for my vehicle, which is already better than what, some people have. So I'm just going to be grateful for that. So I literally got into this Ford Focus or whatever it was. I forget. It was just a black car. I was like, it got a black car because I'm like, just in case, things go south, I can drive for Uber. That was my plan. So I got into this car, and of course I wanted to be driving a better car, but at the same time, I became completely content with the car that I was driving. When I got into it, I was just imagining, maybe this could be my dream car. Mentally, I was living in a Lamborghini. I was driving a Lamborghini mentally. And so for me, it was more about being grateful for what I had left and what I still had going for me. I guess when you lose a lot of things in your life, you start to look around at what you still have. For me, it was that. And that gave me confirmation that it's not over. It's not over for me. There's still a lot of unwritten territory still in my life. There's still a lot of unwritten chapters, and this is just a temporary setback. I got to the point where I honestly just didn't care anymore. I got to the point where I was like, I don't care if I ever reach mega success. Honestly, I'm going to be happy now. I'm not going to waste not one more day of my life sad about not being successful yet. I'm just going to be happy with where I'm at right now. And apparently this is the lessons that I have to learn in order to catapult me forward to the next level. So I just got really okay with how things just were as they were, right? And so that's at least, example that I have in my own life. But I feel like a lot of people fight against the natural flow and the natural cycle of things. And honestly, you have to be okay with the good times and the bad times. You got to be okay with all of it. Because if you're only happy when things are good and you're upset every time things are bad, then you're really missing an opportunity for growth. So the times that are really hard in our life are really meant for us. They're meant to teach us something. There are lessons there. And if you keep ignoring the lessons, then you're going to stay there, right? Until you learn. And sometimes we get stuck there for years, which sucks. So the best advice I can give you is when you're in a downtrend in your life, then take the lesson as fast as you can, right? Okay, I see it. This is where I messed up. This is where I need to go. Okay, check it off my list. Now get back in the flow, get back in the harmony. And the flow state is really just a state of harmony. It's just being okay with where you are, regardless of what that looks like, regardless of your expectations of where you think you should be by now, or how you're supposed to get there. Just being okay with it, however you are right now, and being grateful, but also setting your mind on where you're going, but not being upset that you're not there yet, because you don't want to flood yourself with more blockages. You don't want to block the flow of positive energy coming into your life. And if you are living in a state of ungratitude or ungratefulness, you're literally blocking your blessings from even happening. So resistance has a lot to do with fear, right? It has a lot to do with attachment, right? And attachment is suffering because if you attach to something on the earthly plane versus the spiritual plane, you're going to always be upset because the earthly plane is literally always changing. Seasons are changing, like your income goes up and down. You have good times, you have bad times. Everything's always changing. The law of vibration states everything changes, nothing rests. So if you're always upset when things change, the best thing that I could tell you is just get used to things changing, because that's the natural flow of life in general. Everything has to move. And so you can either be in charge of that change and be growth oriented and embrace the suck, right? During the down times, or you could be upset and you could relinquish your power. You could relinquish your energy that you have in directing the flow, right? Instead of directing it, you're just a victim to it. So you're just being whipped around in this white rafting river, downhill or whatever, uphill. You're trying to swim uphill instead of just relaxing, going with the flow, embracing what is, and knowing that you're going to get there. One way or the other, you're going to get to where you want to go. But you have to live in a state of trust at all times. I think that's the hardest thing for some people, is to just know that you're going to be good no matter what. Because if you look back at your life, you could probably think of times where you maybe weren't good. But the reason you weren't good is because you were attached to an expectation that was maybe unrealistic for where you currently were. So, yeah, like fear and attachment and rigid beliefs, meaning you're so closed-minded, everything has to fit through the filter in which you understand things. You have to learn how to open your mind up and embrace possibility, because quantum physics says everything is in a state of infinite potentiality, meaning anything can happen anytime. And the way that things move and change is based on our own observation. So essentially, how you're looking at it is what you're going to be experiencing, right? So if the glass is half full or half empty, it's both, right? It's the same. It's the same thing. It's just depending on what you're looking at. See, we're like self-fulfilling prophecy seekers. I believe that. We are always looking for evidence of what it is we believe. So if your beliefs are so rigid and you're looking for evidence of turmoil in your life, you're looking for evidence of setbacks, and you're looking for evidence of unhappiness and anger and sadness and fear, if you're looking for evidence of that in your life, you're going to find it. Seek and ye will find. So whatever you're looking for is what you're going to find, because that's what you focus on. That's what you're observing. And eventually that will manifest into your physical reality. You'll look for it. So you have to be able to open up your mind to an infinite world of potentiality. All possibilities can exist. So like Elon Musk, for example, this guy, I was watching just a little part of his documentary last night and just mind blown. This guy starts out as a kid genius. He's bored in school already. How is this going to help me? I already know everything that I need to know here. Goes to the next thing, goes to Stanford at a young age and masters physics and all this stuff. And he's a super genius, But this guy has no limit on what he thinks he can achieve. So he knows that he's here to help change humanity, to help offer solutions to world problems. If he was just a super genius, but his mindset was bad, meaning he was always looking at the worst of things, this guy encountered a lot of drama growing up. He had an abusive father. He had divorced parents, like the whole thing. Some people let those situations create in them something worse than what their potential is. And he took that as a stepping stone instead of a setback to become who he is now. And he's not even done yet. Like, he achieves a goal, then he sets another one. I'm so inspired by just the way he like lives and the way he works in the world. I think we could all learn something from that. This guy is on a creative plane. He's not in a competitive plane. He could care less what the competition is. He's here to create. He's here to test the boundaries of limitless living. And I think if we all just kind of looked at that and was inspired for ourselves, like, we are playing way too small, period. Like, we are playing way too small. And we're letting our beliefs and our attachments and our fears and clinging to the past and holding on to negative emotions of, oh my God, this person hurt my feelings 10 years ago, so I'll never love again. You know, like, we're clinging onto stuff. We're building crap in our air filter, right? Like, we're blocking the flow of all the good. You can't get good if you're hell-bent on blocking it, right? So that's resistance. That's living in a state of resistance. And that is not a fun way to live at all. And I do believe I lived that way for the first several years of my adulthood life because I had a traumatic childhood, right? And so that was my evidence. That was my experience. So when I became an adult, I was looking for that. I was looking for signs of that. I wasn't looking for signs of anything else. So as an early adult, I feel like I got body slammed into the adult world because I was like a self-seeking missile and I was shooting it at myself. And so to get out of that, I had to learn how to just be okay. Like, just be okay. Be all right. Like, good things are happening. Okay. Bad things are happening. Okay. Just don't draw an attachment to anything that doesn't serve you. Don't form an attachment. And so being in the flow is the exact opposite of that. It's not attaching, not allowing things to attach to you and not being attached to things that are worldly. So it's living literally in a state of surrender. Like, you know. So the opposite of fear is knowing. It's not faith. It's faith based on understanding. The opposite of fear is knowing. So once you know you're supported by this magnificent, loving, spiritual universe, God, this life force, when you realize you're attached to that and not anything else externally, then you become very confident in whatever's happening around you because that's your foundation. It's living in a state of surrender to that, state of surrender to God or to spirit, right? You just know, like, look, if we're in an escape room and life is the escape room, you know there's a way out. You just have to trust that you're going to find it. So, like, living in a state of surrender is so important. I used to describe it like life is kind of like sometimes you have to jump off cliffs. Like, you have to take the leap of faith. But you have to also know that something's going to catch you along the way down. It's living like that. And at first it's scary because you're like, well, what if? What if you're wrong? What if this? What if that? And your fears become bigger because the more you think about the what ifs, the bigger the fears become. But again, like, just because something's scary doesn't make it more true. You have to know the truth. When you know the truth, you fear nothing. And the truth is we're connected to the spirit, this loving spirit, and this God force that is sustaining us all. It's sustaining all the planets in perfect alignment. It's sustaining the like everything around us is sustaining your heartbeat right now. Like, you have to live in a surrender to that. Like, do you ever think about that? Like, I'm just alive. Like, how am I even alive? Like, I am obviously alive for a big purpose here. And I just have to be humbled to that spirit that keeps me alive. And then it's also all about, like, to be in a flow state is all about alignment to the present moment. So regardless of what's happening around you, the sky could be falling, like the stocks could be plummeting, crypto could be tanking. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening right now. What happened is around you is irrelevant. You have to be in alignment to the present moment and detached of what is going on, whether it's good or bad, right? And so you have to be, like, just in this state of gratitude at all times. When you're in a state of gratitude, you can't help but attract more good to you because that's a signal that you're putting out. Our emotions are the signal that sends out to the universe that comes back like a boomerang. So alignment to the present moment. Sometimes that means you need to go meditate. You need to go take some time off. You need to go take a nature walk. You need to go walk around barefoot, in the grass for a minute. You need to listen to the birds, listen to the wind in the trees. You need to just breathe, right? Take longer breaths instead of shorter breaths and get attached to the present moment and be humbled by that. And just allow life to unfold naturally, because again, we live in cycles. There's ups, downs, there's winter, there's summer, there's night, there's day, the tides in the ocean rise and fall. So allowing life to unfold naturally and not react to every wave that comes crashing down, because it's part of the journey, it's part of life. Allowing that to happen versus finding a way to resist it and fear it. You only fear it because you don't know what it's doing there, right? But if you know what it's doing there, you don't have to be afraid of it. And then it's also just about finding that just inner peace within, the inner peace and connection to that higher power. That is the truth of everything. And when you hold on to that, you will find your purpose. You will be in an expansive state. You'll be more creative. You'll feel more well-being is just easier, You'll feel more like you can trust yourself. You'll feel like you can look for signs of things that are changing for the better in your life. And it's just a much happier place to be honest. So when you're resisting things, you're resisting the good that's trying to come to you. And when you're in a flow state, you're going along for the ride. But if you keep your vision, your mind's eye is your vision, right? If you keep your vision on what it is that you want, no matter what's going on around you, you're going to get there because of your belief, as long as you're taking steps forward. Now, you're going to move towards your beliefs no matter what, because your beliefs are in your subconscious, and that's where your action center lives as well. This is where we take automatic action. This is where our habits live. This is where our routines live. So if you're actively making changes towards your goal or towards where you want to be, and you're in complete faith that you're going to get there, and you're not bothered by the things that are happening around you, good, bad, chaos, not chaos, whatever is going on around you. If none of that bothers you, you're not being distracted by it. You're not diverting your attention towards it. You're keeping your attention and your focus on your goal and what it is you really want in life. Then it is by law. It is by law that it has to happen. It has to manifest. It has to move into form, because we are creating our own reality, and we're the observer of it and we're the creator of it. So how to overcome resistance. I kind of said some hints of what to do here, but honestly, the first thing is you have to acknowledge it. First you have to acknowledge that you have created a resistance in your life, or that there is a blockage somewhere. If it's like you've been in the same situation 10 times in a row and you can't figure out how to get beyond it, then you know that you've created some sort of resistance in your life, right? And so the first thing is to acknowledge it. Okay, I acknowledge I have some sort of resistance here, or some inner turmoil that I need to address. Or if you have the same trigger that's triggering you every single time, that's a clue for you to go dig deep on that and figure out what that is and release it. So, I grew up with a stepmom that it was all the kids' jobs. There's 4 of us. It was the kids' jobs to figure out where her triggers were and to dance around them, because if we triggered her, she was going to tell our dad, and our dad was going to either beat us or punish us, or something bad was going to happen. So it was our job as children in that household to avoid her triggers. But honestly, that is the most unhealthy thing ever. And it's delusion and it's self-denial, to be honest, to think that it's somebody else's responsibility to avoid your triggers. No, it's your job. If you get triggered, that's a clue, right? That's a clue that that's what you need to work on. That's something there that you need to release. You need to let go of it, and you need to stop holding on to it. You're holding on to the past when you're triggered by something. And it's completely optional. Now, listen, at the mental level, yeah, you can see it, and it might be difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. It is difficult to mentally observe your triggers and choose differently against your physiological response to it, because your body's memorized it too, right? So it's all your emotions remember your trauma and your PTSD and all the shit that's, you happened in the past. And so you get triggered by things, but you can make a different choice, even if it doesn't feel like you want to do it, right? It may not feel natural. It may feel extremely uncomfortable. But you have to, when you are grounded in the truth and you can see your triggers for what they are, then you can objectively look at them, acknowledge them, and say, okay, this is my mission, is to uncover this, is to go down into the vault of this basement of my past and stare at my demons in the face, right? Face your fears. And when you do that, you realize there is nothing really to fear. It was just our association we tied to an experience, and we can change that. You can't change the past, but you can change the association you have to it. Instead of looking back at your life at all your hardships, you can look back at your life and realize how grateful you were for the boot camp you went through. Because guess what? You can take everything you learned and become a real badass out of it. I've been through a lot of shit. For real, I've been through a lot. And because of that, I used to think I was a victim because of all the things that have happened in my life. But now I look back at my life and say, thank God, that all that happened, because now I get to live free. Nothing can bother me now. Nothing can affect me now, because it led me to the truth. It led me to my superpower. And all the hardships and things that are happening in your life are leading you towards your superpower. If you release it and you accept in full, gratitude of the lessons that you were allowed to learn on your path. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my parents now. Were they perfect? Heck no. In many cases, they were complete psychos, honestly, along the way. But I am so grateful that I had the experience I did, because it made me strong, made me bulletproof. It made me see the truth in myself. And I just learned, over time, just to surrender to what is, because it's all for me. It's all for me. It's not happening to me. It's for me. And so the next thing with overcoming resistance is don't force outcomes or control situations. You have to accept the challenges as opportunities for growth. Challenge accepted, okay? You have negative $5 in your bank account. Great. Challenge accepted. That means you're going to be one hell of a badass, because when you get out of that mess, you get to teach somebody, hey, if you have negative $5 in your bank account, or $50 or $500 in your bank account, you get a negative, guess what? You're going to figure out how to get across that battlefield, and you'll be able to lead somebody else out successfully. That's an opportunity for growth, because you can't really be a leader, not even in your own life or in anybody else's life, until you've accomplished some shit, right? You've been through some minefields and you know where the bombs are. When you learn that, that's valuable information. So any challenge you're facing right now, just be grateful for it, because it's an opportunity. And then the last thing is to connect to the now. Like I said, you got to find gratitude. If you're having a real hard time, I see nothing good. Everything's bad, nothing's good. Okay, then force yourself to write a list of 10 things you're grateful for. Just force yourself. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to be mad. You're probably going to be in the middle of a rage. You may be even suicidal. You might be thinking of the worst. But force yourself to write 10 things you're grateful for, and put all your energy that you have left in your being into those 10 things that you wrote down. If you can only, put 3 things down, then focus on those 3 things. And the more you focus on that, the more things you're going to find to be grateful for. And then last, you got to choose joy. Regardless, you only get so much energy in a day. You can choose to be focused on your fears, your lack, what you don't have, your whatever, your doubts, your worries, the what ifs. You could put your energy into that, but that's a waste of time and energy. That's a waste. It's complete. You don't get anything out of it. 0 dividends come out of that. You're never going to win focusing on that. So instead, you want to put your focus, your energy into joy. You know what? I'm not going to let that rob my energy. I'm not going to let that rob my happiness. I'm not going to let that situation dim my light. I'm not going to let that person piss me off because I'm going to stay in control. I'm not going to give my power over to these external situations. I'm not going to give my power to anybody else. So when you can get to that point where you can choose joy, happiness is a choice. You choose it. It doesn't mean it's easy to choose. It means you're choosing it on purpose because you value yourself and you trust. You have trust in the things that are unseen. I live my life in a state of surrender and trust. I live my life in flow, and it's kind of interesting because my husband is starting to learn this also, and he's experienced some tough times. I say that I haven't because I feel like I went through a lot of tough times and I can't go through any more tough times because I feel like, and I'm sure I will, honestly, it's kind of naive to say nothing bad is ever going to happen. But the way I look at things now is different than how I looked at things before. Now, when I see bad things happening, I look at it differently. I take my emotions out of it. I don't allow my emotions to get into it. I look at it objectively and I say, okay, where's the opportunity? I try to look for that opportunity. I look for the gratitude. I look for the silver lining. I'm looking for the things that nobody else is looking for. And out of that comes creativity and the solution to get out of that mess. So anyway, I want to wrap up this podcast just by saying these things, that if you're in your life right now and you know there's resistance and you know that you're literally holding yourself back, then this is the podcast for you. Listen to it again and again if you need to, but find your flow, get in that flow state, reach for things that feel good, reach for things that take you higher, not lower, right? If you have one song that always puts you in a good mood, play that thing on repeat. If you have place you like to go for walks, whatever, go for those walks. If you got to put yourself in a state of harmony and trust, and you can do that, you can make yourself get into that state. You don't have to wait for the right time or the right, external event to happen before you can be happy again. You can choose to find it now. And if you can do that, then you can literally master your destiny, because the next time you're tested again with some resistance, you're going to let it go much faster. And when you get in the habits, in the flow of letting things pass like clouds, not attaching to things that go by, then they just go past you and they attach to somebody else that's not aware, or it just disappears altogether. When you change the way you look at things, the thing that you look at changes. I think Wayne Dwyer said that. So you guys, thank you for hopping on this podcast. I am so grateful that you're here, that you're listening, and I hope that you gain a lot from these short little lessons that I'm putting together here. I sure enjoy doing them. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Bye, guys.
Are you tired of juggling contacts, manually following up, and deals falling through the cracks? We can fix it so you never lose another lead, enabling 24/7 sales and support via an AI that learns your business. Ready to close more deals with less hassle? Get a free trial of our marketing automation at thebuzzcrm.com.